counting down to a watershed election. Eyewitness News, Elections 2024.
Hello, I'm Jane Dutton. A very warm welcome to EWN, coming to you live from our studios here in Johannesburg. I hope you're having a good Sunday. It's about to get a whole lot better with our election coverage just before the vote takes place on Wednesday. It is considered the most important in our democratic history. In the last 30 years, the stakes are high. Yesterday, we saw the EFF and the ANC out. They were campaigning for the vote, and I'm just wondering if you know who you're going to be voting for on Wednesday, or are you part of that 35% who still has absolutely no idea? The other big parties that are out today, the Inkatha Freedom Party, it's the first time they're going to be contesting the elections without Mangosuthu Buthelezi, so it'll be interesting to see how they fare without the big man. And then, of course, the DA, we're going to be crossing over to them. They're going to be talking in about 5 minutes. We believe that John Steenhuisen has already walked into the stadium. They are at the Willemore Stadium in Benoni. This is their Rescue South Africa rally. They were also out in the Western Cape. That's going to be a hotly contested province for the DA. Many people are saying that they're losing support there, but will they have enough support to keep their hands on that province? I'm with my guest, Vusi Gumbi. He's a political researcher, analyst and a researcher, and a very good afternoon to you.
Thank you, Jane, for having me, and welcome to the viewers at home.
We're going to talk quickly because one thing about the DA, sure, they're pretty good when it comes to time.
Certainly.
Unlike yesterday where we waited almost 3 hours
sure,
for the ANC and the EFF. How important is today for the DA?
I think it's very important because as much as this has been called a watershed moment, not only for South Africans, but for the ANC in particular, because it's likely to lose its outright majority, it's also a watershed moment for the DA, right? Having Musi Maimane left, Herman Mashaba left, Athol Trollip, and likely also going to a possibility of a coalition in the Western Cape with, you know, the Patriotic Alliance coming aggressively for that coloured vote. So for them, this is a moment to say we've governed well in some aspects. You know, do not listen to the noise outside. A lot of things have been said. So for the DA, it's all about sending that message one last time, not only to this province that they've been fighting to get over the last 10 or so years, but also back home in the Western Cape. Because as much as people are eyeing Gauteng for a coalition government, KZN for a coalition government, with the Western Cape, looking in 2019 where they got just above 55%, it's likely also to be governed through a coalition. And one thing coalitions have showed us is that once a political party loses that outright majority, it's almost difficult, almost impossible to get it back, you know, over the next few years.
Coalition in the Western Cape?
It's very much likely, considering how aggressively the Patriotic Alliance have been coming for that coloured vote. And I think their strategy, the Patriotic Alliance in these elections, have been manipulating, you know, the material conditions of coloured people to say, you know, during the apartheid era, you know, you were not white enough to have those white benefits. In the democratic dispensation, you've also been relegated at the back of the food chain. So Gauteng Mackenzie and Kenny Kunene have really been playing into the frustrations of coloured people. And again, when you look at election rallies and their idea of a perception of force and dominance, them filling up Athlone Stadium in the Western Cape, the Patriotic Alliance, a few weeks ago, is that perception of force and dominance. So we are coming for the coloured vote, and looking at the fact that in the Western Cape, the coloured vote, colours are the largest voting race in that province. It's very much likely, and I think that a lot of us have not been focusing on that province. We've only been focusing on KZN and Gauteng, you know, for obvious reasons, but it's very much likely, and I think this is his chance, this is his opportunity to say to the voters in the Western Cape that we are still here. We can still govern better. I mean, certainly they've had some shortcomings, but this is not only going to be about broadly, you know, these elections, but they're also going to focus in the Western Cape. Because if you look at 2019, and them dropping below that 20%, they sort of created a precedent to say to Musi, you failed us. So if now John Steenhuisen loses the Western Cape, do they go back to that precedence of saying letting go of John, just like they did to Musi?
And we're looking at pictures of him live now as he's walking into the stadium. I mean, this election is crucial to his future. You were talking about Musi and how when he didn't fare well, when the party didn't fare well, that was the end of him.
Certainly.
I mean, John is not a particularly popular figure within the party itself, and many feel that this could possibly be his last stand if the party doesn't do well. They didn't play the Western Cape well in the sense of the position that they took regarding the war in Gaza.
Certainly.
They've lost a lot of support there. We saw the Muslim Council saying that they're siding with the ANC. I suspect that's more to punish the DA than anything else.
No, definitely. I think for them, I was even watching Helen Zille's interview a few days ago where she was saying they're advocating for a two-state solution. That's neither here or there. The point is the war on Gaza and, lives of Palestinians being lost on a daily basis. And the fact that the party has not been vocal in saying we are denouncing the acts of, killing defenseless people. And the fact that, they've sort of taken a posture of more or less aligning with Israel instead of condemning them. Because one can argue that they've not really sided with Israel, but it's not about siding with Israel. No. It's about condemning the acts of the government, and they've not really done that, right? So when you look at how the ANC has also used the war in Gaza as a way of campaigning. I mean, a few months ago I heard, because of Dr. Naledi Pandor rather, was being tipped to become the premier candidate in the Western Cape, right? Yes. So that was a
that's
reflection,
been one of their smartest moves,
exactly, right?
It's been a PR coup.
Definitely. So that was a reflection of how well she's received by Muslim community in South Africa and by, the family of nations around the world on how she has been vocal about South Africa's stance on the war or rather genocide in Gaza. So I think for them, they tried to get the best of both worlds. Yeah. And they should have said, we're advocating for a two-state solution, but we're also condemning the acts of the Israel government, and they didn't do that. And that sort of annihilated, the Muslims in the Western Cape. And so much as how, conservatives were annihilated when Musi Maimane was trying to create that sort of a multiracial party, and we saw them flocking to the Freedom Front Plus. We might see in these elections many Muslims who are supporting the DA, either going to the ANC, EFF, who's all been supporting this motion, or even the Patriotic Alliance in the case of colored people.
Is that John Steenhuisen talking now? No, not yet.
Yeah.
We'll pop over when he does. Our little screen there is just absolutely tiny, isn't it? Okay, so yes, who is going to benefit? I mean, a lot of people said that the Black Caucus ended up going to Action SA. Are we going to see more of that happening now?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, Herman Mashaba was quite smart because he was informing Action SA. He was riding on the wave of being the Joburg mayor for 3 years and taking sort of like pro-EFF policies like insourcing the workers, expanding the JMPD personnel and all of that. That's why they managed to do so well in the 2021 local government elections, particularly in Johannesburg, where they got 44 seats, in fact, outshining the EFF, in fact, right? So now you've seen people like Funzi Ngubeni. At some point, Bongani Balo had joined Action SA, but he has since went on to open Shiluba. But I think that Black Caucus has been slowly joining Action SA. Some have defected to Rise Mzansi. So the emergence of these parties, your Rise Mzansi, your Action SA, your BOSA, and the Patriotic Alliance coming aggressively for that colored vote is going to affect them a lot. And that's why when John Steenhuisen was elected, is it last year, he said EFF is enemy number one. I think that was admitting that their status as the official opposition is in danger, right? And instead of saying we're gunning to become the next government, we're gunning to grow, he was like, these ones behind us are enemy number one. And I think that was a reflection of admitting that internally they know that it's going to be very, very difficult. I mean, when you look between 2014, they got about 22%. 2019, they went below 20%. So it's a question of whether or not, if they go below, how well then will the EFF do? Will the EFF do so well that it becomes neck and neck with the DA, and that automatically becomes an indictment, not only on John Steenhuisen, but other figures in the party like Helen Zille, who others have said, she had done well to grow the party. She should have stayed back and allowed a new crop of leaders to take the party forward. So this is going to be an indictment on the broader leadership of the DA.
I mean, Gwede Mantashe told us that John Steenhuisen is their prime election tool because of the gaffes that he consistently makes, which plays into, well, every other party's hands. You know, it's the internal divisions within the DA that is proving to be problematic. And you just wonder why they just cannot resolve that. I mean, if you can't win, if you can't get votes off the back of the ANC, then you're doing something very wrong.
Definitely. You know, I think the most important question we should be asking ourselves, the ANC has been declining, right? Especially since after 2004 elections, it has been on a downward spiral. And the DA has not been able to capitalize on that. And I believe that the issue is that they did not understand Mmusi Maimani's vision of playing the long game, right? In 2019, when Mmusi was elected prior to the 2019 elections, he sort of wanted to take the DA and make it a multiracial party and sort of dispel the notion that it's a white party aimed at conserving, you know, the interests and privileges of white South Africans. So Mmusi Maimane was playing,
still the image.
Was playing the long game to say, yes, let us infiltrate other, communities. But the Conservatives felt threatened and obviously, as we saw, defected to the Freedom Front Plus. So the DA, instead of seeing Mmusi Maimane's vision and playing the long game, they sort of felt like, you know what, they panicked, I believe, and decided to say, we're going to let this guy go and we're going to go back to our core constituency and keep those people. So I think that's why you saw now Helen Zille returning back. And that's why most of the time, people tend to take Helen Zille more seriously than John Steenhuisen, because there's that element that you get to say John Steenhuisen is not really the lead. I mean, he is the face of the party, but some of these decisions are taken by people like your Helen Zille, who've been there in the game, and people who, upon their return, more or less forced their mass exodus of black political parties. I mean, black leaders within the DA, such as your Mmusi Maimane, Herman Mashaba, even Patricia de Lille. So it's very important to analyze and gauge the aspect of the DA's inability to tap into those ANC voters, despite the fact that they were growing, with the exception of the 2019 elections, of course.
So whose fault is it? I mean, Helen is a strategist of note.
Definitely.
I mean, she's a smart lady. We know that, often she says things that are deemed inappropriate. All right, I believe that John Steenhuisen is about to speak now, so let's listen into him.
The next president is here.
Democrats, friends, South Africa, are you ready for change? Are you ready to rescue South Africa? Then we're going to do it. We're going to do it together. Siya Phambili, Democrats. Siya Phambili. My fellow South Africans, citizens of South Africa, what you see before you today is the biggest, the strongest, and the most determined democratic alliance that you have ever seen in your lives. What you see before you are the people who make up the heart and the soul of the only political party that moves our country forward where the DA governs. What you see before you are the people who run the best municipalities and the best provincial government in the country. What you see before you is the party that delivers thousands of new jobs wherever we govern. And you know what? We are able to deliver all of these things because of the DA people, the blue people who work across the length and breadth of our country to turn South Africa into the country of our dreams. Democrats, the people you see before you stand on the shoulders of giants. And we were all painfully reminded of this week when the DA family lost one of the greatest giants of them all. So I want you to please join me now in a moment of silence as we honor Mr. James Self, a hero not only of the DA, but of our South African democracy. So join me in a moment of silence as we pay respects to James Self. Ngiyabonga ama-Democrats inkosi kakhulu kuyalibonga. Democrats, on the 29th of May, it will go down in history as the most consequential day of our democracy since the birth of our democracy in 1994. On Wednesday, the ANC will lose the outright majority that it has abused for decades. It will lose the majority that it's abused to push this country into unemployment, to commit corruption and misrule. And on Wednesday, we close the chapter on the ANC rule. And a new chapter will begin for our country. And this new chapter won't be written by the ANC, it won't be written by Ramaphosa, and it won't be written by the rotten people in the union buildings. This new chapter will be written by the people of South Africa. The people of South Africa will write this new chapter by picking up a pen inside of a voting booth and using that pen to draw their 3 sacred crosses on the ballot paper. So remember this when you enter the voting booth over the coming days. As you're about to vote, look at that pen in your hand and reflect on the fact that with that pen, you will personally write the chapter of South Africa that is to come. You will be making history. And the choice you make with that pen in your hand is a serious, serious decision. Because this is a serious election. And as you vote, I want you to think about your family. I want you to think about your future. And then I want you to use that pen to vote for a party with a proven track record that will work for you and turn South Africa's next chapter into the very best one yet. And I want you to vote on all 3 ballot papers for the Democratic Alliance. It's my party, it's your party, it's our party, it's the blue party, it's the party that can bring change. Because you see, unlike all these other parties in this election, the DA doesn't make promises about what we're going to do one day. We don't kaluma, kaluma, kaluma. The Democratic Alliance delivers, delivers, delivers. And we don't talk about what we're going to do sometime. We show you the evidence of what we are doing today already where we govern. And you see, the Democratic Alliance did not just appear out of nowhere to promise you the sun, the moon, and the stars. We don't wait for elections to manipulate you with desperate stunts like the NHI. Because let me tell you, this scheme is nothing about providing poor healthcare services to the poor. This scheme will not solve ANC corruption, and it won't solve the way the ANC have destroyed public health care. Instead, it will expropriate medical aid from the millions of South Africans who, despite the misrule of the ANC, have worked hard to make it into the middle class since 1994. The NHI is an assault on the aspirations of the South African people by the ANC, which is playing political games with the lives and the health of our citizens. And we're here to say, Kwanele, Kwanele. Enough is enough. Because on the 29th of May, we're going to kick the ANC out and we're going to vote the DA in. And you see, we don't do populist political tricks and gimmicks. Instead of expropriating medical aid funds, the DA has a plan, a sustainable plan, to achieve universal access to basic health care for every South African by making private medical aid affordable for more people, while rooting out the corruption and the mismanagement from public hospitals and clinics, just like we've already done in the Western Cape. We don't need the ANC's NHI. If you want to see what basic health care looks like, good health care, just come to the Western Cape, Mr. President, and Alan Windy and our team there will show you how to make hospitals work to heal the sick and to provide decent services for all South Africans, regardless of their health. Because you see, we don't need populist stunts. Because you know why? Because the DA does the hard work. We work hard every day for the people of South Africa. Siyasebenza for the people of South Africa. Every single day we are siyasebenzing for the people of South Africa. And let me tell you, the DA worked yesterday to create a better country. The DA is working today to create a better country, and the DA will keep on working tomorrow for a better country. Are you with me, Democrats? Are we going to do this? Are we united? Because what we are united, nobody can tear us apart. We are not going to let anybody divide us. It doesn't matter if we're black, white, Indian, colored, Muslim, Hindu, Christian, Jew, rich, poor, urban or rural. We're together as the Democratic Alliance, and we're here to show South Africa the way into the future. And this isn't Kaluma, Kaluma, Kaluma. Because as we speak here today, those regions under the DA's control are creating thousands and thousands of jobs, more jobs than anywhere else in the country. If you want a job, you must vote for the Democratic Alliance, because we know how to create jobs. Today, as we stand here, DA governments are busy managing public finances with zero tolerance for corruption. Panzi Amasela, Panzi. We don't steal the money. Where we govern, we make sure that every cent of money is spent on the people. We're not like the fat cats in the ANC who take your money and put it in their back pockets or give it to their friends. We spend it on services and we spend it on the people. And today, as we stand here at this rally, the DA is making communities safer where we govern. through initiatives like the 1.2 billion rand LEAP program, which doesn't keep criminals on the streets. It's taken 27,000 criminals off the streets to keep our people safe and secure. Today, DA governments already run the best public schools, hospitals, and clinics you will find anywhere in South Africa. And today, as we speak here today, we are busy enhancing the dignity of poor South Africans by delivering excellent public health care, excellent public education. The DA-led Cape Town is investing more in poor communities than the ANC-led Johannesburg and eThekwini combined. Because the DA doesn't kaluma about tackling poverty. We beat poverty where we govern. And if you want to beat poverty, vote for the Democratic Alliance. We don't... Yes, DA is number one. You're right. The DA is number one. And on the 29th of May, we're going to come out number one on the ballot paper. And when we come out number one, South Africa is going to come out number one. You see, we don't offer empty promises. We show you concrete facts. And the facts are undeniable. If you want a government that creates 2 million new jobs, that gets rid of cadre deployment to ensure fair access to work for all South Africans, if you want to halve the rate of violent crime, including murder, attempted murder, and gender-based violence, if you want clean, accountable government with zero tolerance for corruption, if you want to end load shedding and water cuts, if you want to fix public schools so that we can triple the number of grade 4 learners who can read for meaning and provide our children with a better future. And if you want to expand access to private medical aid to more people rather than taking it away from those who've earned it the hard way, then I'm here to tell you, you are ready to vote for the Democratic Alliance. You are ready to vote for the DA. If you want those things and you want more, if you want a record of action and a promise of more, you are ready to vote for the DA. We already run the best municipalities and provincial governments in South Africa today. And that is why only the DA can make tomorrow a better country. Only the DA can make tomorrow a better country, because we believe that South Africa can be a better country. Because today our country suffers. Our people are suffering under the unbearable burden of poverty, of unemployment, of crime and hunger. But these disasters are not inevitable. These disasters were created by the ANC people, by corrupt and selfish people who betrayed our country. Panzi Amasela, Panzi. It's these ANC cadres who used the corruption of BEE to create billionaires and millionaires, while plunging 11 million people into unemployment and 30 million people into poverty. The same people who watched and sat by as our country was sold out to the Guptas. The same man who hid undeclared dollars inside his couch at Pala Pala and then covered it up. But I'm here to tell you today that if having the wrong people in power is destroying South Africa, then electing the right people into government can rescue South Africa. And Democrats, that's exactly what we can do together on Wednesday. Because in this election, and for the first time ever, the DA has a clear path to getting into national government. By uniting with our partners inside the multi-party charter, we have pooled together the biggest bloc of opposition voters since 1994. And together, we can get to the 50% plus one we need to rescue South Africa. So, while the ANC is on its way out, if every DA voter comes out on election day, we can win. We can win, Democrats, if we come out and vote. So, on Wednesday, defeating the ANC and electing the DA is your date with destiny. It is your date with destiny. And don't miss out on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to say, I was there. I was there when we voted the ANC out and we voted the DA in. And we elected a new government that works for the people and not for the politicians. My fellow South Africans, on Wednesday, you will hold in your hand the pen that writes a new chapter for South Africa. But make no mistake, if DA voters stay at home, or they split the vote amongst many small parties on the ballot, then our country's next chapter could be even uglier than the past. If we sit back and allow a coalition between the ANC, the EFF, and the MK, aided by the sellouts in the Patriotic Alliance, our tomorrow will be far, far worse than our yesterday. Because if that happens, the NHI will be implemented, property will be expropriated, and corruption will engulf us, and our economy will collapse. It will be doomsday for South Africa. But I'm here with good news today. I'm here with good news because I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be this way. We can do something different. All it takes to beat this coalition of corruption and ensure that tomorrow is a better country is to turn out in the millions and vote for the Blue Party, the Democratic Alliance, the party that gets things done, the party ready to rescue South Africa. I'm more convinced than ever before that good South Africans are not going to sit around and sit back and allow their worst fears to wash over them and end up ruling them. Instead, I believe that the South African people are about to make history by voting for their hopes and installing a new government anchored by a proven track record of the Democratic Alliance. Democrats, friends, during this campaign, I've traveled to every corner of South Africa, and I've met South Africans from all walks of life. So if you're one of the mothers I met who's wondering how you're going to put food on the table tonight to feed your children, if you're a father who feels pained and angry because you cannot find work to provide for your family, if you are sick and ailing and worry whether the public healthcare system will ever heal you, if you are a young graduate who's forced to stand at a traffic light begging for a job, then I stand before you today to tell you, I have seen you. The Democratic Alliance has seen you. We've tasted your bitter disappointments. We've heard your dreams, and I have felt your pain. And I'm here to tell you, loud and clear, from this podium today, that help is on the way. And that help is coming on the 29th of May when we vote for the DA to get into government and rescue South Africa. Help is on the way. And so, if you're watching this at home, if you're one of those millions of people that are watching this at home, and you still don't believe me, then please join me in welcoming the DA's federal leadership onto the stage. Let's give them a round of applause, the DA's federal leadership. Democrats, if you don't believe me that tomorrow can be a better country, then I invite you to look at the faces of the people here today. These people come from every background. They come from every neighborhood, and they come from every corner of this country. These people are your neighbors, they are your friends, and they are your compatriots. The talent and diversity that you see gathered here today, you will never see in any other political party. If these patriots from diverse backgrounds can stand together united to declare that we refuse to give up on South Africa and that they are determined to make our tomorrow a better country, then you at home watching can do the same. You have the power to write a new chapter where tomorrow is a better country. And it doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter what language you speak or what your background is. If you want a big, strong party with a track record of creating jobs, if you want to run effective governments, if you want an end to unemployment, crime, corruption, and poverty, if you want to rescue South Africa, and if you believe that tomorrow can be a better country, then you are ready. You are ready to vote for the DA. So South Africa, we'll see you at the voting booths. We'll see you where you can join with us in voting for a strong DA to rescue South Africa. Your vote can rescue South Africa. On Wednesday, the 29th of May, vote for the DA. Vote for the DA.
We've been listening to John Steenhuisen, the leader of the Democratic Alliance, in his last speech before the elections on Wednesday. He's been addressing the crowds there from the Wilmore Stadium in Gauteng. Lots of blue confetti flying all around, and you just wonder if that is enough to get the DA voters to cast their ballot in his favor, in the party's favor on Wednesday. Lots of Kaluma in his rather short speech, which is quite something for politicians. It certainly seems to be the way to go. My guest is Vusi Gumbi. He's been listening in on that speech with me. Started off honouring Self, a man who died recently, and a real party stalwart, somebody who was respected within the DA. John, understandably talking about how successful municipalities are under DA governments. He obviously took a swipe at the ANC and saying to them that if you vote for them, well, you're voting for the fat cats who take your money and put it into their pockets. He also said, don't split the vote. So a bit of contradiction there, right, Vusi? I mean, you know, we know about the multi-party charter, and yet he's saying don't vote for these smaller parties. It's something that you think they would have cleared up by now.
Yeah, but I think it's been a long time coming. The cracks have been there. And I think this has been a long-held view of the DA. It's not only him personally. I think Helen Zille has also held that view to say, you know, you're wasting your votes when you vote for smaller parties. And it's quite ironic, the fact that they said on waste of votes rather, on smaller parties, but they are in a moonshot pact. They've signed an agreement. I was reading an article in the morning that Helen Zille is not ruling out a coalition with the ANC, despite the fact that they've signed, put pen to paper, that none of the Moonshot Pact members will go into a coalition with the ANC. So it's sort of a contradiction. And I guess it tells you the end goal of the DA, right? Their goal is to make sure that, one, they remain the official opposition, because as I said earlier, that would be an indictment on John Steenhuisen and the broader leadership of the DA. But number two, they need to make sure that they continue holding on to the notion of being an alternative to South Africans, right? That's why he's been talking about well-governed municipalities and all of that.
All right, let's listen. John is back at the podium talking. Let's listen to what he has to say. National anthem there, coming out from the Wilmore Stadium after John Steenhuisen's final address. It is the last day of rallying before that super important vote on Wednesday. My guest, Vusi Gumi, was saying that first the flag and then they play the national anthem afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just firstly, they banned the flag, right, with that, advert that, caused divisions in the country. And now instead of starting with the national anthem, you end with it. So I'm not sure whether it was supposed to be like that or they literally forgot that they were supposed to start with it. Because sometimes, when you are running at a rally, things, easily get out of control. So I don't think that this was the plan. My assumption, at least for them, I hope, would be that maybe, in the midst of all, the chaos and being busy, they just forgot.
We forgot.
Yes, rather than a deliberate plan or attempt to say, no, we'll end with the national anthem, because it is standard procedure, especially if you call yourself the government in waiting, and that's why I refer to the election manifesto, the one that I held at front of the union buildings. It was symbolic in nature to say that we've traveled this journey from Western Cape, we've traveled the country, and now we've arrived at our destination. And that was the interpretation of holding that election manifesto at the union buildings. To say now we have arrived. We've traveled since 1994. 30 years has taken us to arrive here. So you can then say, having had a symbolic election manifesto at the seat of government, and then go on to burn the flag, and then in your final election rally, instead of starting with the anthem and then, you end with it. So I would assume that it just they forgot rather than a deliberate plan, because it really wouldn't bode well for them.
And we were just saying how exhausted they must be, how
Sure.
exhausted all of these politicians must be, crisscrossing the country, trying to snap up the final votes, getting to the rural areas as much as they could do.
Yeah.
How do you think the DA is going to do out in rural areas?
I think they're not going to do so well in rural areas. I think primarily because, one, the rural areas have always voted conservatively, right? And for a longest of time, as we said earlier, despite the decline of the ANC, the DA has not somehow been able to make inroads into those areas, right? And then with the emergence of other parties, South Africans are saying, well, we didn't want to vote for the DA, we might as well go for, maybe these smaller parties, we don't, people are not really sure or can't gauge the extent to which the MK party, for instance, will also be of significance in these elections. So, but I don't think that's where most of their votes will come from. And besides, even where they govern well or where they get votes well in the Western Cape, it's not really a rural province. And that's where they've been governing with the majority for 10 years or so, odd years, right? And for the first 5 years, it was through a coalition. So I think that they'll have to focus on those urban areas and try, that's where at least, their elections were focused on those urban areas, trying to make sure that they bring a lot of those working class, because parties like Rise Mzansi, for instance, are tapping into, those demographics, the working class of South Africa, and these are, smaller parties that might head to the DA in these elections. Yeah.
If the DA doesn't do as well as it expects to do, as it wants to do, where does this leave John? Who's in waiting?
Well, I think, here it's a matter of the DA made their own bed. They created a precedence. They said, for the first time in 2019, from 1994 to 2019, they were the only party in South Africa that grew in all successive elections, right? Until 2019. And they felt that, Musi, there's something wrong with you, because all along we've been growing, right? And then they felt that John is that individual who can come and steer the ship in the right direction. If they decline now, it's either they continue with that precedence and let John go. If not, then John survives on the notion of him being a white man. It continues to fuel the notion that it's a white party, because if now the results are the same, why can't the cause or the recourse become the same? So I think that how they treated Musi Maimane will come back to haunt them now, because I don't think they'll want to let John go. One, for stability, right? Because to have, so many leaders within a short space of time taps into things like institutional memory, the stability of the party, the growth of the party. So I don't think it would be in the best interest of the party to let John go, despite of how he does. But again,
as much as they like Jordan Hilders.
All right? But as much as they don't do that, it also goes back to how they treated Musi Maimane. And you correctly point out to the mayor of the city of Cape Town, who many of us call him the future leader of the party. Will he have that appetite to go for it so soon after elections? Because I get the sense that they are close with John, but we don't know the internal background dynamics. So it's going to be very important how they maneuver this, because they've lost a number of key leaders. And will John stay if he's booted out? That's another key question.
Yeah. The president, we've heard recently, is going to be addressing the nation at 6 o'clock tonight. One would assume it's not electioneering, that he's going to rather be presidential and telling us all to behave, maybe.
Certainly. We all hope that, right? And considering how divisive these elections have been, you know, I think we call them watershed for so many reasons. One, the ANC might lose its majority, you know, the issue of coalitions and all of that. So I think this is his moment. Others will be hoping he's addressing us for the last time as president, right? Others will be saying, no, he's coming back. But this is his moment to unify the country. There's been talks of unrest. You know, there are so many hotspots.
Sorry. I mean, Zuma on the BBC basically saying, you know, I'm a fighter.
Yes.
Very concerning.
Exactly.
Knowing that there is the potential for violence and the July unrest.
Yeah. You know, so I think this is his moment to unify the country and say elections are only for one day. But this country belongs to all of us for the rest of all us, for the next 5 years. So we must not be blindsided by the 29th of May. Let's go out there, let's cast our ballots, but let's not forget the bigger picture. The bigger picture is not dividing the country along political lines. The bigger picture is building South Africa. That's why my argument is, if the ANC, which is increasingly likely, does go below that 50+1, what South Africa needs is not a coalition. South Africa needs a government of national unity, because we are so divided on many fronts, right? But that government of national unity must not be at the expense of maybe things like transformation and growing the country, not only for the privileged, but for the underprivileged as well. So I think this is his opportunity to say...
bank on divisions.
Exactly, right? To say, let's go out there and understand that at the end of the day, we might belong to different political parties, but one thing that is common is that we are South Africans and we all love this country. That's why we have so many people, you know, campaigning for, you know, various political lines. So it is my hope that he would be obviously unifying the country ahead of the elections and obviously, you know, putting the state apparatus on standby for those key high-risk areas. We saw what happened in July 2021 where, you know, hundreds of people lost their lives, and it would be a shame for something like that to happen, especially when South Africa is a beacon of hope for Africa and the world, and how to become a model of democracy, come together despite a very difficult past.
I'd love to end on that, but it would be remiss not to talk about the Inkatha Freedom Party.
Sure.
We can just have a quick word about them. The first time that they're contesting the elections with their former leader. What's going to happen to them?
I think besides MK, so before December 16, 2023, they were all set, I think maybe even to become the official opposition, or even, you know, to eclipse the ANC, because if there's one province where the ANC is not going to do very well, it is KZN. I saw a few days ago where King Misuzulu said that we are going to deal with them at the polls, because it's linked to the Ingonyama Trust. So it's clear that the ANC in KZN is losing power, and I'm going to put my head on the block and say they're going to lose it with epic numbers, right? And the inclusion of the MK party is what disturbs the IFP, because without them, they were all said to be either the official opposition or maybe be neck and neck in that province with the ANC. So, but I still do believe that they'll do well. They had a very great rally at Moses Mabidia in March, and I think when we take the 2021 local government elections as a benchmark for how people voted, right, albeit a low voter turnout, they did quite well. So I think they will do quite well in KZN, but they would have done exceptionally well if it was not for the MK party. So that MK party is going to be a kingmaker in that province.
Vusi Gumbi, good to have you with us. I mean, it really
so
is all up for grabs this Wednesday. I know that you are all going to go out to vote, and we'll be coming to you live from the Rock, from the Nerve Centre. We'll be telling you how it's playing out, so we shall see you then.